Here's the type of video you should not expect from me more often, but fuck it, it's a special occasion. 2022 marks the 5th year since the announcement of Metroid Prime 4, and the 3rd year since they said, whoops, we're starting over, and sent my brain directly to hell. Now, you may or may not have picked up that I am... well, huge is the wrong word. I am a sycophantic evangelical Metroid fan. It's my favorite series and has been with me my whole life. The Prime series specifically is my favorite facet of the whole franchise. It's Metroid but more. The whole trilogy in general is some of the most important and formative art to me, even including stuff like Gurren Lagann, which is equally as salient in my mind. Last year saw the long-awaited release of Dread, and I even made a video talking about my relationships to the series in the days before the game dropped. Dread was without a doubt my favorite thing that came out that year on many levels, and its existence sort of restoked this flame of hope for Metroid Prime 4. I figured it's probably at least pretty likely we could hear about it this year, maybe even get the first trailer in a Nintendo Direct. So I thought, now is the time. I need to unload this storm missile barrage of vomit towards the internet to fully crystallize forever a moment before we knew what Metroid Prime 4 was going to be. I have scoured YouTube for weeks, looking at dozens of other prediction/wishlist videos for Prime 4 to see if I had missed anything on my own list, and did not help in the slightest. Seriously guys, pick up the slack. I gotta delay my fucking Skyhawks retrospective or whatever the fuck I'm making at the moment to do this shit for you? Give Daddy the controller and let him finish the level for you. After like a week of scrutiny and brainstorming, I have come with a litany of ideas for this supposedly real game that will exist soon, ranging from small gameplay tweaks to wild story-related swings to things that I would just like to see make a return from other games. So join me, dear viewers, on a journey into the unknown for the final time as we try to guess what's going to be in Metroid Prime 4. Let's get the more mundane stuff that literally every single person on YouTube has come up with out of the way. A single world interconnected like Prime 1 and 2 would be the right move. I actually really love the multiple planets in Prime 3 and think that Brio might be my personal favorite planet of the whole series aesthetically and story-wise. But the massive scope led to less intimate stories being told. When I think about Talon 4, I think of the mystery of the Chozo, the disturbed spirits gone mad, that need to be laid to rest, the personal connection that Samus has with her lost cousins. When I think of Aether, I think of a world torn apart due to war, with unfathomable specters of death, the stories of the heroes who fought in that battle, including some children, and a hero who gave her life to return the first Sky Temple key to its place forevermore. Both of those things directly involve the main conflict of the game, being some fucked up meteor coming and annihilating the planet in some way, and seeding it with Phazon. Prime 3 technically deals with this, but it's in a very removed way. Brio's problems began before Phazon came to the planet. I just feel having it set in one place led them to be more economical with the storytelling, implicit and explicit, and that's what led to great personal investment. Traditional FPS controls are totally fine, though aim assist or even a lock-on should be integrated into it. Prime does not need robust and skillful combat to be fun and engaging, though if they can implement it well, then hey, what the hell, right? On that note, I'm a Grandmaster Big Ball Man and find Metroid, even Dread, pretty easy, so it would be great to have a hard mode available right from the get-go. Maybe even have the super hard mode be what's unlocked instead after completion, and it actually changes more than just buffing the enemies. Kenji Yamamoto or some equal caliber must do the music. I can forgive the lackluster OST in Dread, but I will die of anger if this happens again in Prime 4. The original trilogy had some of the greatest music humans have ever composed. I want the Crash for Gate theme to play at my funeral, and I weep big tears every time I hear the Metroid Prime 3 ending theme. Also, some more interesting progression gating than red door opens red gun. Now, I don't think that system is fundamentally flawed. For example, the different guns serve many purposes beyond being a key to a door, like environmental puzzles and combat. And Prime does tend to have better progression gating than just that, but it can sometimes feel arbitrary to shoot a missile door. Maybe have a tricky and cleverly hidden platforming be the gate. Maybe new types of traversal and movement? For that matter, please God, just fully implement a ledge grab. The way it was used in Prime 3 was supremely asinine, and Doom 2016 proves that you can have great vertical level design that feels challenging to explore with a ledge grab. How about some upgrade related wishes? Fuck Seeker missiles, Storm missiles all the way. They're just cooler and far more effective in combat, as in I actually use them in combat. I think it's time to finally also give us the speed booster in Prime. Maybe a speed toggle that drains some sort of stamina gauge. We can talk about that, what that might be slightly down the list. Fully give us a wave beam equivalent as well. The wave beam in Prime 1 and the Nova beam in Prime 3 were super situational in how they shot through walls. So just say fuck it and give us it at full power. Maybe towards the end of the game when we already have the X-ray visor for maximum effect, similar to the Nova. Similarly, the plasma beam needs to be able to pierce through enemies. Come on guys, that's just fucking cool. I really love the way that they refined the melee counter in Dread, so some sort of melee attack would be a cool idea to mix up combat. Maybe either a punch like Doom or a cannon whack like the regular melee counter. Hey, maybe even some kind of laser sword via beam cannon. Maybe it's the only way to break certain shields in combat and environmental puzzles. I want boost ball physics puzzles. Before we had half pipes and rolling in an energy thing, but I want to play billiards and shit. I want them to go completely buck wild with it. I want things to be as involved and tricky as they were in Prime 2 with the boost/spider ball puzzles, but like amped up to 11. Possibly some grenades or sticky bombs with a remote or delayed detonation, similar to what you would see in like Breath of the Wild. Ideally for combat, but can be used for puzzles or progression. Maybe the bombs are electrical based and static cling to enemies, but can be used to overload certain machines or locks to open them. I'm not opposed to a more story-based game. Not at all. In fact, I think Dread went way too soft on its story. Likely this is due to being too gun-shy after how much bile was flung towards Other M. I say fuck it, let Samus talk. That being said, if it's ultimately going to involve the GF, as we know from Federation Force existing and being a tee-up for this game, I want them to be a lot more sidelined than they were in Prime 3. Maybe my least favorite parts of that game when it was trying really hard to be Halo. I love a lot about Rundis, Gore, and Gandrada, but they don't get much in terms of commanding presence, as the military guys are the ones put in the focus. This really diminishes even further the sense of purpose and intimacy one could form on the planets in Prime 3, and it would be best, if not to scale it back, then at least try to make them more interesting and Samus less of a lapdog for them. I just don't like authority figures, I guess. Fuck cops. Another controversial, maybe, thing that I want is some kind of reuse of the old scrapped ideas. If the Dread concept could get resurrected, I would love to see a return of that fucking weird evil AI thing with multiple personalities from Prime 1.5. Maybe even more involved gunship mechanics, as they were woefully underdeveloped in Prime 3, and they planned so much more. I wouldn't even necessarily be upset with some kind of bounty system, whether it be from NPCs or something like an achievement system like Prime 3 had, just with more substantial rewards. I do want tons of concept art though. I think Dread had a really great mix of Candy Trail expansions and sadistic how the fuck am I supposed to get this expansions. I think paring the missile packs down to 2 and making missile plus packs be fucking 10 missiles, but also insanely hard to get, balances out and makes them more precious resource. I feel like most people don't appreciate missile expansions purely because they don't feel incentivized to use them. To that I say, play the game correctly, you freaks. Producer Kensuke Tanabe once mentioned that, along with wanting Prime 4 to be on a single planet, he would also want to do something with time travel or manipulation. Makes sense to me. Prime 2 had multiple iterations of a world and was able to create cool layered puzzle solving with that, but being able to use past, present, and future as iterations increases the scale even further while only deepening your intimacy with the planet. Getting to see what it's like in its heyday by going to the past, or getting to see how much worse it will get by going to the future would be pretty excellent. Something like Sonic CD, I guess. Maybe like with Breath of the Wild 2 and to an extent Samus Returns, time manipulation could figure into combat and puzzle solving. A meter like the Aeon Energy in Samus Returns could offer another avenue for expansions as well. Certainly a lot more meaningful than fucking ship missiles were in Prime 3. NPCs either in the past or present that are inhabitants of the planet you are on, like Umos but more, would be pretty cool. Interact with them, gain a rapport, gather information firsthand. really see the effects of whatever conflict has had on this planet. Fuck around with the order you get certain items. Prime 3 gives you the screw attack really early on, so there's more room for you to do jumping set pieces. Dread waited until after the third Emmy to give you the Morph Ball, and it was hilarious and felt really good. I wouldn't mind returning the space jump to an upgrade, or moving it towards the middle like the jump boost was in Dread, especially if ledge climbing is going to be a thing. I want the bosses to have a sense of thingness, you know, like there's some kind of reason or context to build up to the fight. Think about how Amorbus was the sacred guardian beast of the Agon Wastes that was corrupted, or Quadraxis was an ultimate war machine that was turned against Luminoth, or dozen scan logs you have building up to the Omega Pirate in the first Metroid Prime. Only a few bosses in Dread had that kind of energy, with the best one being Experiment Z57. But otherwise, paled in comparison to Metroid Fusion in sheer thingness, especially with big set-piece bosses. It needs to feel like it's happening for a reason and be larger than life. Moganar was the only boss in Prime 3 that really felt that way. Similarly, Prime 2 and Fusion had this excellent diegetic excuse for a ton of smaller boss fights that give you items. While it'd be hard to repeat that without the X or the Ing being a thing, I hope we at least have a good spread of memorable themed mini-bosses that give you an appropriate item upon defeat. Fuck it, put in a soul mechanic like Aria of Sorrow if you have to. I just like that style. It makes the act of finding every boss feel like a reward in and of itself, and that's really important in a progression-based game with a puzzle box world design. As far as controversial garbage, I want more Morph Ball battles. I'm of the very unique and probably wrong opinion that the Spider Ball Guardian is one of the best fights in the whole series, and I enjoy that the Power Bomb Guardian and Caretaker class drone are short but fun challenges that make you think outside the box. I think everybody loves the Morph Ball, and if they can find a good balance that's not infuriating to newcomers or too easy for epic level God Kings like myself, I think people would learn to love these types of fights. Prime 2 had a lot of alpha bosses, or essentially just bigger and more badass enemy bosses. I'm totally fine with that as a way to fill out mini-bosses, as long as they look unique enough to signify their status. Maybe even just have the alien wolf-like apex predators that hit fast and hard, like the Armadiggers were in Metroid Dread, with the big Papa Wolf being the full-on boss fight, much like the Sheegoth was in Prime 1. If a single Super Metroid boss has to come back, it's time for Dragon to get her big comeback. Dread implied that Kraid, or at least his race, was possibly an inhabitant of ZDR and was captured by both the Chozo and the Zabizians separately, so maybe this planet is where Dragon was captured by the Space Pirates. I would also love to maybe see a non-Exeris or Yakuza. No, not Kazuma Kiryu, but the big fucking spider thing from Fusion. Alright, time to talk at length about the elephant in the room, Sylux. I have nothing against him. I don't really feel anything at all about him beyond being a cool design from a lackluster game. But while I don't think he's an amazing character, I'm excited about how gung-ho they are about putting him into the story. It could offer a more bitter rivalry than Samus and Dark Samus, as he is most likely just a normal person. Or, you know, person in the sense of not being an Aldrich cancer monster. Since he captures a Metroid at the end of Federation Force, it'd be pretty fucking lame if he just cloned Metroids again and that was it. I would love for him to do something more fucked up with them. Sylux's weapon is reminiscent of the powers of the Metroids, being able to siphon energy. And he has some vague grudge against the GF, so maybe he was a scientist that experimented with Metroids before the Space Pirates captured them in the first game. Maybe if you want to try to get into the Galactic Federation as secretly evil conspiracy theory that everybody loves, he was experimented on by the GF. Anyone remember the Hugh Metroid from Prime 1.5? What if that came back and was him? Seriously though, splicing Metroid genes into other animals to make some ultra super duper apex predator or other such things could be pretty cool. It would nicely lead into the next game thematically, Metroid 2 as well, garnering sympathy for the Metroids before you have to go and eradicate them. On that note, a potential fight with Sylux needs to feel bare-knuckle and evenly matched. The fight with Ravenbeak was like falling into the deep end, and no matter what you threw at him, he kept going and styling on you until you're moments away from death, and then you get that last-minute power-up, and it's fucking awesome! Yeah! Fuck yeah! Sylux needs to be more like Rundus and less like the crappy Hunters fights. Evenly matched, but still structured like a boss. Not just like some guy in a deathmatch. Or maybe he could fight dirty in order to fuck up Samus, since she's a supreme level badass, of course. Would really like one or more of the hunters to show up as well. Maybe you could make amends with Noxus or Spire, as they weren't bad or malicious people in that game. Hell, have Noxus still be a narc, and have him obstruct your mission with his sense of justice, but respect you after what you did on Phase. Really make it feel like a sequel to Hunters, Prime 3, and Federation Force all at once. Make people regret skipping Federation Force, like I did, because it looked not fun at all. Now we get into wild speculation, where I just kind of spitball ideas from out of literally nothing. If the planet is going to be a home of a new race of cool alien dudes with sick-ass power suit upgrades and everything, maybe instead of birds or moths or lizards or sentient robots, it can be fish-like or amphibious people, a water-based society on the coastland in a tropical environment. Maybe abuse or fighting over a device or power that controls time leads to the big civil war that fractures and damages the planet and its ecosystem. Maybe Sylux and the Metroid-related hijinks cause further chaos to break out when he sides with the faction and gives them his bioweaponry in order for them to tip the scales and win the war. The tropical amphibious world can also lead to some great world design. Getting the gravity suit can feel like a really big moment when it lets you finally travel below the ocean. There could be an Atlantis-type city that was abandoned during the war and it can function as both the water area and the ruins area, or a coral reef area similar to Sector 4 or Berenia. But it's on the verge of dying due to this conflict. You can even have a remix of one of the Sector 4 themes instead of Red Brinstar for the 10th time. If the inhabitants of the planet do still live, I would love for Samus's reputation to precede her, either in relation to the Chozo, which they no doubt were in contact with, or from her actions saving the galaxy from Phazon. I really loved how Prime 2 had a woman in the GF that loved and admired Samus as a personal hero, and it was similarly cool to have Illuminath A. Cool be a Samus-like hero to her people. Maybe you meet a young girl on the planet that knows who Samus is or just generally looks up to her due to your actions in the other games. Okay, I'll say it. I want an artifact hunt at the end of this game. The ones in Prime 1 and 2 allowed you to travel the whole game world with a full-powered suit and let you feel how powerful you were firsthand. That was the case in Prime 3 as well, but Hyper Mode already let you become an invincible god of destruction, so it felt less impactful. I think if there's more robust fast travel system, nothing crazy, just maybe 1 or 2 teleportals per area, it would make the whole thing a lot more manageable. Side note, if there is in fact a remake of Prime 1 on the horizon, map markers and fast travel porters are my biggest pitches to modernize that game without fucking up the level design. If Sylux ends up being the final boss, I hope it's only after some big fucked up monster thing. Again, Prime 2 did that the best. I just love these kind of Dante versus Virgil boss fights to cap off a game, but I'm also a big fan of a big, massive monster that requires everything in your arsenal to beat. The Metroid Prime and Emperor Ing excelled at that, whereas Aurora Unit 313 felt like a letdown in that regard, being rather easy since you're in permanent hyper mode at that point. And on that note, I want the ending to bring me to tears. None of that smash cut to credits nonsense like Dread did, whether it be from the beauty or catharsis, or from genuine emotion like Fusion in Prime 2, I just want to feel. I also want the 100% secret ending to make me pog my balls off like it did in Prime 1 and Samus Returns. Seeing the final Chozo memory hinting at Dread was maybe better than the whole game combined, as it meant that they were planning to do more with the franchise that I loved. Despite my issues with it, I'm totally fine with Dread being an ending and not having much to speculate about, but not making a new trilogy after 4 would be a waste considering how long it took to just make this one game. At the end of the day though, what really matters is it's the best game that they could give us. I would certainly balk at a more linear game design like Prime 3, but I also love Prime 3, so really I just want to love whatever Prime 4 ends up being. Dread felt like a worthy entry and sequel to the main series, and I want the same to be true with Prime 4. I cannot properly convey how much the first 3 games mean to me, how much of my mind share they occupy, and how many times I have played them all. To get a new addition to my favorite family, that would be what I dreamt of since I was in middle school. Even if it takes until next year to even get any news, I will wait and I will keep dreaming.